Hey, welcome back to the Retail Initiative podcast. I am excited because I have a guest that I've been so excited to talk to for a while. And I won't lie, like part of me just wants to do this for me, but I think you're going to get a lot from this. So with me today is Chrystal Rose. How you doing, Chrystal?
I'm so good. How are you?
Doing great, and just back from vacation, and so you're getting
Amazing.
post-vacation Josh. Yeah, well, before we get into it, I would love to share with our listeners, like, what do you do? Because your Instagram says like you're a somatic and embodiment and breath work, and you do all those things. Like, does that mean you're a therapist? Are you a mindset coach? Like, what exactly does Chrystal Rose do?
That's such a good question. It's honestly, it's really hard to explain it myself, and my clients are still who've worked with me for years are still like, I don't know what to tell people what you do. But essentially, I'm a transformation coach, and so my job is to help you get from where you are now, if you're stuck, if you're struggling, or even if you just want to get to the next level. That's what I do. I help you get to where you want to go. So therapy, for example. Sure, we may touch on trauma or we may touch on certain things that happened in your past that are holding you back. But a therapist, essentially, like talk therapy, is like you talk to someone, you just sit there and talk. I am pretty much tracing your current behaviors, tracing your current feelings back to maybe those times, and we're healing it at the root so you can move forward and unravel those behaviors on their own. It's automatic. It's not something you have to think about. So a mindset coach will tell you to think differently and, oh, just think of it this way. And whereas I actually help unravel those things, so you're automatically thinking differently.
That is, no, that is fascinating. And so, I see all the time, like, I mean, you and I are both a part of a lot of the same retail groups.
Yeah.
You used to own a boutique, so retail. And I love that you do this. I know I'm sure you help non-retailers, but you do it so much in the retail community.
Yeah.
And I see posts all the time that are like, I'm struggling, like my sales aren't there. And there's always a comment that's like, you got to get your mindset right, which, look, I'll be honest, like you can go back on my own episodes and I talk a lot about that. And, you're going to see like Tony Robbins books behind me and all of that stuff.
Totally.
But what's the difference between mindset and what I think people mean when they say that? Because I've seen your reels, and if you don't follow her on Instagram, you definitely need to. Her content is awesome. But like, you say something different from that. So like what's the difference between mindset work and what you're doing?
So when people are like, oh, you got to change your mindset, like ultimately what that is like babysitting your thoughts all day, right? Oh, negative thought, got to change it to a positive one. And you can only think one thought at a time, right? Like you can only think one thought at a time. And so if you're thinking that negative thought, there it is. And now you have to like shove it out with a positive one, and you're just going back and forth. And ultimately, mindset work is very surface layer. It's at that thought level. But what's deeper than the thoughts are the beliefs. And if something happened to you when you were 5, or it could just be an offhand phrase. It could be a boy in second grade just said something mean to you, and now it's like an insecurity. And of course, your brain is like, I don't care about that. I don't think about that, right? But there was like a little wound that was created and a belief started. And so if you're trying to just change your mindset, hey, think of it this way. And you're like, okay, I'm going to think of it this way. I'm going to think of it this way. I'm going to think of it this way. I'm going to say affirmations, but you don't actually believe them. There's all that stuff underneath, all of the subconscious, all these layers of beliefs that you have that are going to keep dragging you back to that original thought, right? And that your initial current mindset. Of course, there are some things that I can say and you'll be like, oh, wow, I've never thought of it that way. And it shifts easy because you don't have those beliefs under that particular thing. So mindset is really just keeping you up here, and you have to babysit your thoughts all day. It's exhausting.
Yes.
It's exhausting.
It is. And, as much as I do love a lot of that world, I've even experienced where like I'll get this mindset shift and that lasts like a week.
Mm-hmm,
Like
mm-hmm.
I could leave a conference, I can leave an event, and I'm pumped and I'm excited and I'm going to think about it all. Yes. And if my belief doesn't change, like one of the most transformative moments in my own life and business was I was doing really well, but I was struggling to get to the next level. And I had a
Mhm.
coach that was like, you've grown to the point that your beliefs are going to let you grow.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
until you can change your beliefs, not change your mindset, not change how you're thinking about it, but you change what you believe,
Mhm.
you're not going to be able to get there. So
Exactly.
when you think about changing that, like, where do you start in adjusting your belief? Because that gets to some deep things. We believing about different things about your potential, about what your
Mhm.
past might mean, or all those things. Like, where do you
Yeah.
start when you're talking with someone?
There's like, that's the thing is I have to start where I have to meet you where you're at, right? It's different for everybody. So I go in, especially when I'm working one on one. I mean, even in groups, I can't just be like, okay, here's what, here's where we start because it's different for everybody, right? I have to figure out what these beliefs even are. And generally they're they're on like that tail end of the behavior. So it's like, well, what are you struggling with? What's your actual problem, right? Because we don't, may not know that there's an underground belief. Because most of us aren't walking around, especially if you're an entrepreneur, we're not walking around being like, I'm worthless, like
Right.
we're not thinking that we're like, oh, of course I'm worthy, of course. But there might be something deep, deep, deep down that you aren't consciously aware of that, oh, if I work really hard and make lots of money, then I will be worthy, then I will be loved. And that's what most of our beliefs really kind of go back down to. They're rooted in like, will I be loved? Am I worthy? It's the fear that you won't be either. And so we're generally out there doing all of these things, doing the most to like meet those needs and feel that feeling, but from the external. So I really start with what are you doing right now that's getting in your way? Right? Is it self sabotage? Is it perfectionism? And there could be a whole host of them. And we have to figure out like when did this first start? Where did this come from? And like, what's the need you're trying to meet? Is it love? Is it reassurance? Is it confidence? Is it worthiness? And then we have to meet it like yourself, which
Yeah.
is when you've been running around trying to meet it by like achieving things or like numbing it and all of that, to actually meet it yourself is the way to heal it, but also it's difficult to do on your own.
Yeah. The whole idea of, gosh, I mean, I struggle with this so much
Mhm.
of needing external validation and
Yeah.
needing that to come from my kids, my wife, my clients, my audience, or other people in the industry, and wanting those people to affirm what I do.
Yep.
And
It's
yeah, I
empty.
mean, so it
It's
is because
empty.
it's never enough.
Never. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole idea. I think it was John Acuff that was like, 10,000 compliments plus one insult equals one insult,
Hmm.
and that's the one thing. And as soon as you hear, the at least on my end where I see that's never enough is a thousand people could say, Josh, your talk changed the way I approach business, and it changed this. And as soon as one person was like, you didn't really say anything new, I'd heard it before.
Mm.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm my talks are terrible. Why am I
They're
even doing
both.
this? I need to quit.
It, it's both on the same side. It's on opposite sides of the same belief. Believe it or not. So when people
Explain that.
say, so when people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're amazing," and this, that, and the other thing, like because maybe you don't really truly believe that on your own, it just kind of it doesn't feel like anything, right? And so because maybe you have this fear or this belief that you're just not good enough or that whatever blah 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 blah, when something shines a little flashlight on that fear, it's like, "Oh no." Right? So it's really the same thing. That's why you can't absorb it, you can't take it in because you don't actually believe what they're saying, like truly at the core level. You might be able to consciously be like, yeah, I'm good at this, or yeah, sure, but and that negative thing that's said just shines a flashlight on something you already are insecure about or you already fear is the truth.
Mm.
And that's why it sends you. Because if you didn't think it yourself or believe it, you'd be like, whatever, jackwagon, you'd be like, okay. And you would just move on. You'd be like, that's not true.
Yeah, so when I guess when you're thinking about like a retailer
Mhm.
and all the things that their insecurities and all these pieces, like one of the common things I see a lot is this Like they'll look at, like, let's say in the boutique world, they'll look at
Mhm.
Pink Lily and they'll look at Red Dress and they'll look at Ruthie Grace and Philly Flair and all the big names in
Yeah.
the boutique space. And they're like, that I could never do that.
Mhm.
And maybe they really want to. Like, let's talk
Yeah.
about someone who actually aspires to that. There are some
Yeah.
people that are like 30K, they're 30K a month, and they're like, no, this is great. Like, I have the life I want, and I'm going to stay here because I'm happy here. Good
Yeah.
for them. But for the person that aspires to get to that level, but they really deep down don't believe, like, where does that conversation start with you? And I know that it's different for everyone, but I'm sure you've seen common threads. What would
Mhm.
you say are maybe some of those common threads of people that see who these people they look up to, but are like, but I could never do that. They're smarter than me. They figured it out, or they got in because the Facebook algorithm was better.
Yeah.
Whatever those reasons might be, where do you start with that kind of conversation?
I think there's so much to unpack there. So like one is that 30K a month person that you just named, I think is so rare. I don't know many, especially like, women business owners that are not like driven for more, that are just like, this is fine. I like this, right?
I haven't
Um,
met very many.
it's rare. It's really rare to just be like present and comfortable and want more of what you've got, right? I think that in this industry, people feel like they have to be the red dress. They feel like they have to be, the pink lily and those big names. Like that's the standard and that's what I should be working towards. And so that already puts them at, why am I not there? Right? Whether they just first start in business or they've been in it for 10 years, they're like, that's what I want to, that's where I want to be. Why am I not there? And so that's where it starts to like erode, you're looking at someone's completely different business model thinking like you should be there. One of the things I see all the time is no celebration of hitting milestones, right? So if you hit like a really big month in sales, maybe your biggest ever, there's usually a fear coupled with it of like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like, can I maintain this? Was this a fluke? What happened? Oh, well, this was only because I did a sale. This was only because whatever. And they just like kind of disregard it. And meanwhile, when they go and they have like a bad month, they take it personally and make it like it's about them and they suck and all of that. So there's like all of that happening. And then this industry, like it's so easy to have your head on a swivel. What's she doing? What's she doing? What did she do to be successful? What did she do to be successful? And I have clients who are literally burning their businesses like down to the ground and starting over with, what do I want to do? What lights me up? What feels good? And I've seen in the space too, people be like, oh, whenever I do the stuff I like, it doesn't work. And it's like, okay, well, how many times have you did? Just once? Can you pick up a guitar and do Slash's solo in November Rain, like right off the bat? No. That's going to take years, that's going to take years of practice. So it's practicing and continuing to do the things that light you up and make you happy. A lot of these brands are super successful because they're doing what works for them.
Mm.
And there's that miss, I have to do what's working for them instead of like what will actually work for me. What makes me want to show up to work every day excited.
Gosh, I mean, that's powerful. And it's easy because I think a lot of us deep down kind of know that.
Mm-hmm.
But, one of the things I talk about all the time is like you have to understand your customer and you have to really know who that one specific person is, not a range, but one specific customer.
Yeah.
But one of the questions I get all the time is, well, what report can I run to find who that is?
Yeah.
Like, is that how I figure out who my perfect customer is? And what you're saying is, who do you want your perfect customer to be?
Yes.
Like, even if you start there, if we're all serving, like, if by a report you found out that your perfect customer is a bunch of Karens, and if your name's Karen, I apologize, but a bunch of Karens, at the end, do you want to keep doing that? Like, do you want to keep
Yeah.
dealing with those returns, or can we take a step back and say, who do I want to serve?
Yeah.
And those people can then be attracted to you, just like it was for those bigger boutiques. They did that
Mhm.
same thing.
Yeah.
And
Instead of like,
it,
this is what sells. Oh, well, this is what sells. So I'm just going to keep selling it. It's like, but are you happy? Do you like selling that? Is this the brand you really are excited to build?
yes.
Probably not.
One of the things you said that I love is the idea of celebrating wins. Like,
Mhm.
what are some of the beyond even sales numbers, but like some of the wins that you encourage people to celebrate? And part of why I'm asking this is context of like, I just finished the book Shoe Dog, which is the story of Phil Knight, who started Nike. But one of the things the threads that I noticed, and it's a amazing book that I think every retailer should read. You'll learn a lot from it. I mean, it's Nike. But through his journey, even like at 500K in sales, at 2 million, at 9, at 150, all of those numbers, at no point was there ever like a celebration. Hey, look how far we've come. It was always there's this number in the future,
Sure.
and when I get there. And he talks about his bad relationship with his kids, his bad relationship with his wife, all these things. And I wonder what could have been different for his life if he had stopped and celebrated. So
Yes.
besides sales numbers, because sometimes, like, let's be real, right now there are a lot of retailers that are struggling. So what type of wins do you think are worthy to stop and celebrate?
Oh my God, there's so many. This is the word celebrate, or like the phrase, how are you celebrating this? It probably haunts like multiple clients of mine. They just like hear my voice being like, how are you celebrating this? And they're like, ah. I would put a client on a celebration diet every day. I don't care. Figure out something that you can celebrate. Something good happened, right? And at first it can be really small, like something dumb is going to happen anyway. You're going to make X amount of dollars today. You're going to, whatever happens in your life that, is just a win or just a good little like, yay, right? Whatever it is. Oh, I got a free car wash when I filled up my gas tank today. Yay. That's something to celebrate. And because we're always waiting for this big, 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 big thing that's like has to be good enough, we're lying to ourselves thinking we're going to celebrate when we get there. Because when we get there, we're already looking at what the next thing is, the next target. So there are two reasons why I enforce celebration, even on the little tiny things, is because one, you're getting in that vibe of celebration. You're experiencing it. You're getting used to it. And you're like, this feels good. So when you do hit that milestone, you feel it. You actually are present in that celebration. And you're like, oh my gosh, I did it, instead of just being like, okay, next, So there's that. And then also we're training your subconscious to find more things to celebrate. When you sit in that energy of being excited, happy, proud, grateful, your brain, like this is actually scientific, you have something called the reticular activating system. It's going to seek out more opportunities to make that happen. So if you're super stoked about the $1 in your bank account, that part of your brain is like, how can we get more? This is fun. If you're celebrating the car wash, if you're celebrating the coffee someone bought for you at Starbucks, or that, day of sales that has been a really good day, maybe not the best day, but a really good day, and you're celebrating it, your subconscious is going to keep seeking out ways and opportunities for you to have more to celebrate. So it's like twofold. It's literally, if that's the only thing you take away from this is celebrate every little thing, like it'll change your life and your business for sure.
Yeah. And so what do you think, what happens? Because my brain goes to attraction when you say that. And is that kind of what you're implying?
Yeah.
So the idea that when I'm focused on celebrating these wins, I'm then focused on, I guess, like when I've read attraction books, one of the ideas that I hear all the time is, when you fill your brain with what you don't want, what you're scared of. And I don't want to have a bad month. I don't want my Facebook ads to not work. You attract what you don't want because it's still what your brain's thinking about. But when you're focused on celebrating those little things, you're going to attract more of exactly what your brain is on.
Yes.
And so fill it with what you want. And one of the ways, what I love what you're saying.
And not the lack of it. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And you're celebrating it because it then attracts more of it. And one of the best ways to get there isn't just to think about it, it is to like celebrate what you already have. But one of the things that you've talked about, and I think this is a decent segue to it, is the idea of embodiment. So, when you get into mindset work, there's a lot of conversation around like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Like you need to like be that successful entrepreneur right now, and then you'll become that person. So act like I think it was like Grant Cardone's like your first when you a salesperson when they make their first $10,000, first thing they need to do is go buy, five $2,000 suits because they need to
Yeah.
be the person that they're going to be when they're super successful.
Yes.
What's how is embodiment different from that?
I think it's a little more nuanced and like deeper, right? Because like the whole fake it till you make it thing, it can be bypassing. Because again, right? Like there could be a belief under there. There could be a wound or a rupture or trauma that's keeping you from getting to where you want to go, to feeling how you want to feel. So if you just fake it, which is like really hard to just put on because you have to keep remembering that you're faking it, right? To think about faking it, think about I am confident, I am confident, I am confident when like you actually aren't or you don't feel that way. Like it's really hard to do. You're just making that connection is really difficult. But what I do a lot of is we talk about our future self, our higher self, and what if she's living that life already, right? Like all the things you want to do and how you want to feel, most importantly, what would that feel like? And we can all feel that now, right now. What would it feel like to be super confident? What would it feel like to be super wealthy? How would that feel in your body? Like sit in that, like that juiciness of that feeling. And that's the difference, right? We're not like, okay, I'm gonna think about it. We're like, no, what would it feel like? What would it feel like if I was standing in a room with my entire team and we just hit the X bazillion dollar mark and there's confetti in the air and champagne is spraying and like what does it smell like? What does it feel like? What, is there a breeze going through? Like what does that scene? Like can we embody that feeling and then operate from that feeling? Totally different from okay, I gotta remember I'm confident. I gotta be confident, be confident, be confident.
So it's starting with the feeling rather than the end result. So the end result is like I'm a super successful retailer. Okay, so I'm gonna be a super successful retailer today.
Right.
Th-
Go be one.
Eventually,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So instead, you're looking at okay, let's look 5 years into the future. You're a incredibly successful retailer. Your team respects you. You have this much in the bank account. You drive this car. So that's what they're saying. Like that looks like. What would you then? How would you coach that person to feel those things rather than just obsess over I'm a super successful retailer, whatever
Yeah.
that means.
It's really a kind of two-prong approach, right? Like if you have an illness that like causes your nose to just bleed and you go to the hospital and you're like, my nose is bleeding, help, but like I have this illness. If they're trying to like hit the illness first, you're gushing blood, right? We got to take care of that. And so I like to do both things. I like to focus on the symptom, right? Like let's get there, let's feel it, let's feel what that feels like. What does a super successful retailer look like to you? Because it could look like something completely different to someone else. What does it feel like to you? Can you see it? Can you smell it? Can you feel like, does that mean you have more time with your family? Like paint a picture. And then how would you feel if you were in it? And so we want to bring that into your body. And then also we've got to get to that crunchiness in your system that's telling you can't have it. That's telling you that you don't get to have this. You're not worthy of it. Or like, why you self-sabotage and all of that. We have to get to that base, that like layer underneath. So it's not like, again, mindset starts with the thought. With embodiment work, we start at the belief, which is in your body. Your beliefs and your wounds and your trauma and your ruptures and all of that live in your body. So it's beliefs, thoughts. Thoughts create the feelings. Feelings create the actions, and then actions get you your results. So if we're only focusing on the result, like that's the result I want, boom. Okay, what do we do with that? There's nothing to do from there, right? Or just the action. Okay, I have to take these actions all the time. Well, when you struggle being consistent and you're not motivated and you have all these issues keeping you from taking the action, right? Well, what's the feeling? What's the feeling driving the action or the inaction? Okay, what are the thoughts driving the feelings? And then what are the beliefs that are driving the thoughts? We have to get back to the belief. but we can always do both, right? Like we can be in that embodiment and like really feel it, even though we're not there yet. And it, is going to be difficult to get there without getting underneath to that belief. Then we do that too.
Man, that was powerful. Yeah. No, that was,
I mean, the work is insanely powerful.
yes, it is. And so I'd love for people that are interested in that. Like you mentioned to me a challenge that you have, and it sounds unbelievable. Like how, explain the challenge. Tell us like where can we get access to this? Because I'm excited about it. I'm going to go sign up.
Yeah. So I created this 3-day challenge because, again, like explaining embodiment to people versus like mindset can just be a whole thing. And I want people to actually feel it. And so while like this 3-day challenge isn't going to just heal all your wounds and shatter all those beliefs, it's going to give you a real good taste of what happens when you start doing embodiment practices. And so it's 3 days. It's super easy. There are like 3 short videos to get you started and figure out how to do it, like what you're doing for the next day. Literally anybody can do these things. And by the end of it, just everyone was like, when we ran it the first time, everyone was like, oh my gosh, that was so powerful. Or I felt like this. And it was just so positive. So a really good way to just dip your toe in to be like, what is this even about? Is the challenge. So you can go to my website, chrystalrose.com. My name is spelled Chrystal. And then 3-day challenge, chrystalrose.com/3-day challenge. And that's a 3, like the number 3, not spelled out, day challenge. And it's free. Get in there. And if you do it, like find me and tell me about it because it's super cool. I'm really proud of it.
That's awesome. Well, and we'll also put that in the show notes. And so if you missed those things, we'll put that there so you can get access to it. But Chrystal, thanks for being with me. This was, encouraging for me personally. And I hope for those listening, I hope they were equally as encouraged. And, at least the thing that I would hope that people are leaving with is like, one, you aren't alone. Like the fact that you exist, like your role exists. Is because this isn't a you thing. Like this isn't everyone thing. And we all have these beliefs and these insecurities and these things that we need to work through. And then the idea of like, hey, we're going to need to edit this. And where are we? 27, 20. I'll just say at minute 27. Yeah, well, I'll just wrap up. So, yeah, well, Chrystal, thanks for being here. This was an incredible episode. I'm leaving super encouraged, and I hope that, people that are listening, whether they're driving or at the gym or whatever, are leaving with some takeaways and understanding like they're not alone. And, your role exists because like this isn't everyone thing. We all have beliefs. We all have these things underneath the surface. And I love the work that you're doing, helping people do that and not just like, I'm confident, but really like addressing the root things to become confident. And so, Chrystal, thanks for being here. I'm so grateful for you. And again, check the show notes. And so again, thanks for listening. If you did enjoy this, what I would really appreciate is if you would, review the episode and like, subscribe, all that good stuff. That helps us connect with more retailers and continue to make the impact that we want to make. So thanks for joining.